A lot of people don't think there are disadvantages to being handsome or being good looking, and there's many reasons for that. One, people can't relate to something that they don't experience. So it's kind of like thinking that the grass is always greener. It's like the thing you don't have. If you make minimum wage, the guy making 50 grand a year looks like, wow, I wish I made that. If you're making 50 grand a year, the guy making 100 grand is like, oh, well, I wish I made that. The guy making 100 grand, you see someone making a million, oh, I wish I made that. The millionaire sees the billionaire, and then the billionaire, he has so many things to take care of, assets and paperwork, and this mortgage here, this rental property here. He's always like taking care of so many things that he just like, I wish I had the free time of the homeless person, right? It's always like the thing that you don't have. Someone always looks to someone else's situation as something that they wish that they had a little bit more of. So when it comes to looks, when we talk about red pill and black pill and MGTOW, yes, looks are very important and they affect the guy and the girl very much. But a lot of people, they take that same oh, must be nice, and they think that that's just the entirety of someone's circumstance. It's like seeing the pro athlete, like, oh, how could he have a bad day? How could he complain about something? He's making millions of dollars just playing a sport, and that's how people think about it because they're not in that position, so they don't know, right? They're not in the pro athlete's position, so they don't know that he goes home and deals with family issues. They don't know that everyone from his community just like expects a bunch of money or handouts, or like when people see that you're the one with the money, then there's that target that's placed on you, right? So people don't know that because they don't have the money. They're not a pro athlete, so all they can relate to on it is, oh, well, I don't have that, I don't do it myself. So that's all that they can think about with it. When it comes to looks, they think like, oh, well, like a good looking girl, good looking guy, there's no reason you should complain about anything because that's like the more desirable thing to have, which is true. Like if you're going to compare advantages and disadvantages, more people would want the advantages and disadvantages of the good looking person as opposed to the unattractive person. But it's like anything, it's like duality in a 50-50. It all balances out. There's always a good with a bad. There's always a circumstance where it's an advantage, but then another circumstance where it's a disadvantage. And it all comes back to our nature of wanting to balance things out. And we all go for our own stuff in life. We all like work for ourselves. We all go for our own goals, our own accomplishments. So in pursuit of you doing that, you're affecting other people. So yes, you have like an advantage in a certain area, or what's perceived as an advantage. But then when other people start to think that you have that advantage, now that could turn into a disadvantage based on the words and actions from other people. So you're taking on a lot of energy of whether it's jealousy or envy, people that wish that they had what you had. And it's kind of like I was saying with the grass is always greener. People just see that you have that, and it affects their interactions with you. I've mentioned it before when I talked about this looks concept in a previous video, where an employer, if they're hiring for like a member of the team position, or just like a position that just does like one task, there's not really a lot of room for growth, it's just another part of the team. Yeah, being like the good looking guy can help you obtain that position or obtain that job. But if it's a competitive position where you could rise up, or you're competing against other people, the boss might think that if the good looking guy is also good at his job, or he has other traits, that could be the guy that rises up and passes everyone else on the career ladder. So they don't give that guy the position because they see the potential of it, or how that could affect other people down the line. So it does balance out, whether it's money or looks or whatever you think like the positive thing is. There's always a disadvantage. There's always something that you don't see in that person's circumstance. And so yes, we can see the better of the two options, but that doesn't mean that there's no disadvantages to the better option. It's always looking to seek balance, no matter what we're talking about. So I think a lot of people, they don't understand it as a disadvantage because it's one of those things like you don't know if you don't experience it, right? Like me, I've never lived in a two-story house, so some people have that mentality like if they're in a single-story house, it's small, or an apartment, and they see someone with like this 2-story house and a pool and jacuzzi, they just think like, wow, like I wish I had that house. But you look at the people who live there, and that's just their normal. That's just their standard. So they don't even look at it that way. So when they're dealing with life and the way they're dealing with it, people go, well, how could you be complaining about that, or how could you have a bad day, or how could you be saying that? Look at where you live. But again, it's like they just don't know. They're just basing it off of, oh, they live in an apartment or they live in a single-story house. So anything that the 2-story house person says, they just think is not being grateful, or they just don't get it because they feel like you have this huge advantage. How could you ever have a disadvantage in another way? Well, it's like, think of like like you could say, well, they just inherited money, which happens, and they just have that house. But also too, maybe they work really hard and they're always working like 60 hours a week. That's how they afford the house. Or maybe now that they're the ones with the money, you have issues with your relatives because they see that you have money, issues with your friends because they see that you have money, they see that you've moved up in the economy. So it creates that energy of people around you of, oh, I wish I had that, and everyone's always trying to take it from you, or see you fall off, or not see you ascend any higher. And who's to say too, like, what if the 2-story house person, if they make their money off of a company where they're paying the employees minimum wage, who's to say there's not a huge building resentment from every employee of that company? Who's to say that there's not resentment there? So you see the person that's affording this 2-story house, there could be thousands of people underneath that have like absolute resentment for that person because of like the way that they make that money is the minimum wage workers for that company. And you might not think that's a disadvantage if you get to be like, the lucky guy who owns the company, who lives there. But it all comes back. It's all karma, whether you see it today or tomorrow or down the line. It all comes back. You don't escape it. Even if you go through this life rich, successful, houses, cars, good health, how you affect people always comes back to you. Even if you pass on, you're not getting away from it. So your karma is always there. So when it comes to looks, people just don't know because they don't experience it. They don't understand that, like, if you're a good-looking guy too, you could say like, oh, well, that's just extremely helpful with women. But what if that puts you in a situation where now your friend's girlfriend is attracted to you, or your friend's mom is attracted to you, or like a girl that you're seeing that's your age, you go to her house for dinner or something, and then her mom is also attracted to you. So you have like the daughter and the mom, and it causes issues. So something that that the onlooker thinks is this huge advantage, and you should just be like living the dream. They don't understand the ramifications of your existence and your actions, because having like too much of a good thing, because you have so much of that advantage, it creates the disadvantage in other people, because not only are you affecting that person, but you're affecting the lives of people around you. So in that example that I just used, say like the good-looking guy that you think, oh, well, that's just clearly only an advantage, there's no disadvantages. Well, what if he's in a situation, he meets a girl, and she doesn't even tell him that she has a boyfriend or a husband, and so then he's just thinking he's with this girl, and then it comes out later, and then now he has to take on the guy's anger or frustration because he just didn't know. And people can do some crazy things when they're in a situation like that. So the good-looking guy ends up being the victim of something just off of circumstance, where people don't want him to have it. People don't want their girlfriend to be attracted to that guy. They don't want their mom to be attracted to that guy. They don't want their sister or their cousin or someone close to them being attracted to that guy, because it causes issues within their relationship to that person, right? The good-looking guy could come in, and you say the good-looking guy, he goes and gets with a girl that's older than him. Well, that's the mom of someone he could have grown up with. So how does that guy feel about it? It depends on his maturity. Is he okay with it, or does that now cause issues between the two of them? So this happens, and so you got to be careful. No matter where you fall on that scale of looks, it's like your existence just impacts people. So there's situations and scenarios where it can be a disadvantage based on perception how people treat you, what they want you to have, what they don't want you to have, how they feel about certain things in the whole balancing act that we have of keeping things 50-50. You start to rise too much, there's always going to be a pushback. You're not supposed to be too much better than the people around you, right? So the people around you, if you start rising above in a certain metric, everyone's going to pull you down. That's just how human nature works. So whether it's looks or your money or whatever, if you start having too much of one thing, the natural way of how we look to seek balance is going to happen, and people are going to try to take it from you. They're going to try to get you back down to their level, crabs in a bucket, 50-50. So yeah, like, is it better to be financially secure and have like $1 million in the bank than to be poor and homeless? Of course it's better, but the whole, there's only advantages, there's no disadvantages. It just comes back to people who, they can't relate to it because they don't experience it. They don't know what could possibly be the disadvantage, and they're not open to hear it, because as soon as the person explains it, they're already pissed off that they don't have it, right? They don't have those looks, or they don't have that money, so they're already coming at it with this pissed off mentality, because they feel like the person shouldn't be saying that, like, oh, easy for you to say, or oh, like, you would be the person to say that kind of thing, you know? So that's just how they look at it. And when it comes to looks and with the black pill, when people already have experienced life in the way they've experienced it, and they've seen how their looks have affected them, it's hard for them to see someone who has it, who has the looks, to explain how that could be a detriment in another area, because they just see what they don't have, right? They don't put their mind into certain scenarios to see where that could actually be a very dangerous thing to have. So it just takes being open-minded to it, not just thinking that because someone has something that their entire life is complete or perfect. It's just looking at all angles involved to see why there are disadvantages to someone being good-looking or handsome.